I'm a natural problem solver. So when I choose industries and whatever the next step is, I have to be really convinced and passionate about solving the problems for that particular industry. Like I said, I think engineering to that extent is universal, right? So software engineering, building the right teams, weighing and trying to figure out where you are in the journey. How much do you value speed right now or quality, and how you weigh that, and how the strategy changes over the next couple of years as you become more mature as an engineering organization and as a company. I think people who don't or are not willing to evolve with this change will find themselves yes, potentially out of work and outclassed by some of the guys who have the hard skills but can also utilize AI. It's not about the years of experience, right? Because someone who's been doing this, let's say, for 10 years, right? He could be doing the wrong thing for 10 years. It doesn't mean that he's a senior guy or a mature guy. It's really about learning the proper skills and learning along the way and picking up some of these from working with really smart people in interesting projects.
Hi guys, this is Philip Ann, here with another episode of the CTO Show hosted by Tech Vibe. Today we're in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, with a special guest who is Kiko. Kiko is the VP of Engineering at Xsolla, and we're currently in his office today. So thank you so much for being here on the show, Kiko.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Kiko, I was talking to you before, and honestly, I was just blown away by both the craziness of your stories, but also your international background in terms of being from Southeast Asia, moving to Dubai, then coming back, and then moving all around the world. So can you tell me a little bit more about what brought you to all of these random locations across the world?
All right. So originally from the Philippines, right? That's where I started my career. And then, already started doing regional and global projects, and got the opportunity to work in the UAE, in Dubai, for a digital security company. And then got another opportunity to move to Singapore, working for a logistics company. And then back in Dubai, and now the opportunity, I guess, brings me here to KL. So it's kind of been like that. Dubai has a tendency of drawing you back, so and it's a fun place. And I've met some interesting people there, and it's the tech community there is actually a fun group. It's been nice.
That's great. So the second time you went to Dubai, what were you doing there?
So a little bit of consulting and helping startup companies. And my family kind of moved there, and my daughter is now based in Dubai. Actually,
okay,
she's working there. So Dubai is kind of becoming a second home also because she's based there. So probably going to be dropping by once or twice.
That's great. So I think in your career, what's quite unique is that you've worked at so many different types of industries, right? Tell me a little bit more about like that mindset and mentality. Usually people pick maybe one industry and just try to be more and more senior as they climb up the ladder, right?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting scenario, right? I've never really looked at myself as a domain expert like in one industry. I'm really more of an engineering guy, right? So I've had the chance to work in travel industry, in fintech, in logistics, in secure communications, and now video game industry, right? So I think it just really depends on if you're passionate about what you do and what value you can bring to a particular organization. At the end of the day, I think engineering is universal. A lot of the times you're solving the same problems, or you're trying to build the same efficiencies, or it's trying to find the right talent and being able to apply that to the unique problems in that particular industry. But yeah, it's been an exciting ride so far.
And I think for you, you've had some pretty unique opportunities, right?
Yeah. So like in Dubai, I was able to work for a company that built the secure phone for the UAE government.
Okay.
Right. And I'm talking about like real security, government level security. So there's only so much you can do with software, securing software. If you really want to lock down something, you have to do the hardware part as well. So we actually built a completely different phone from like a Samsung or an iOS or an Apple phone. We built hardware, and my job was to build the software that ran on top of that. So email, chat applications. It was really interesting, and it was also my first time working in that kind of a secure environment. So I had some really interesting experiences.
Like what? Tell me more.
There's no ID. You couldn't wear your ID. It was pretty much discouraged to talk about anything that's work related outside. Obviously I toned down my social media life. Wasn't posting on Facebook. Not much activity, right? Even on LinkedIn, not taking pictures and stuff like that. There was one interesting experience actually where, because we were issued the secure phone, and people were concerned about whether you still had it, because there's no way that you should be able to lose it somewhere, right? So we actually on a daily basis we had to take a picture of ourselves with the phone, showing the IMEI code so that they can actually validate that it's the phone that was issued to you.
Wow.
Behind like maybe the College Times or Gulf News that shows the headlines and the date for that day.
Wow.
And submit that on a daily basis. Yeah, there was a period of time that was kind of like that. So
this was a very highly sensitive, basically, government project. Right?
yes. I think I went through like 10 or 11 interviews, and then I had to wait for like 2 months for them to vet me before I actually got the offer. It's pretty intense.
Were you concerned at any point about maybe getting hacked or being compromised or these kind of?
I think that was on a day-to-day basis that was a concern, right?
Yeah.
Because we would hear reports that some entity that was related to some nation state, was actively trying to hack, and we would get that reports from time to time and act on it when needed.
Wow. And I guess like after that experience, now are you concerned about privacy, or is it even possible? Maybe we have iPhones, we have Androids today. Like, are those even secure now?
It's a very scary picture. So what I learned from my experience working, for secure communications is, the ones that are commercially available is not really secure, and there's not a lot of stuff you can do to secure it, right? So there's a couple of things that maybe can limit your exposure, like maybe switching to a phone that uses Graphene OS, using VPN, or simply like switching to an analog phone. Right, some people when I was there actually refrained from using smartphones, but essentially there's not a lot of stuff you can do. When your phone gets compromised, they pretty much can do anything that you can do, right? Including turning on the camera, turning on the microphone, record the video, record an audio. Even when the phone is actually shut down, powered down, there's a tool called Pegasus, which was not very well known before, but now it's there's some press coverage. It does a lot of stuff that for example, it can do a fake shutdown where you shut it down and you think the phone is actually off, but it's not. And they can pretty much infect your phone without you even clicking anything or doing anything. Like they give you a missed call on WhatsApp, and that's it.
And then your phone is infected.
And then your phone is infected. So it is pretty scary.
This episode is brought to you by TechVibe, your one-stop IT recruitment solution provider. We connect global companies with top tech talent across Southeast Asia. Whether you're looking for permanent hires, short-term contractors, or employer of record, EOR services, we've got you covered, especially in the IT and digital sectors. Thanks for tuning in. And now, enjoy the episode.
So I guess, given that Pegasus and these kind of software exist as a consumer, is there anything that we could do to mitigate that exposure, or should we just completely give up?
Try not to expose as much information, out there, and be extra careful, but apart from that, really, right? Your phone can get compromised and you won't even know it. Right? Yeah, it's not something that I think a lot of people would like to hear. It paints a bleak picture, but that's how it is. Really.
I think right now maybe a lot of the conversation is bad actors maybe using AI or like deepfakes, for example, even in elections, to either manipulate or misrepresent certain entities or populations. And I guess this is something that is a risk, right? AI will further accelerate.
I mean, AI is an enabler, right? So if you're using it as a tool to analyze, because it does a lot of stuff really efficiently and fast, right? So if you want to use it to do something positive and analyze data and drive out decisions and make it easier for you to do that, then it's going to be extremely helpful. I use it for that. Doing research, I hardly do any like regular Google search anymore. Right? You can do that, but also it can be used for nefarious reasons. And yeah, I mean, it becomes so much easier now to detect patterns. Like for example, where you've been for the last 5 years, and we can easily now detect where you've lived. If you've been in this location, maybe 12, 15 times the last 5 years, then there's some connection there, right? Maybe you have an ex-girlfriend there, maybe your cousin lives there, your parents used to live there, or you used to live there, some stuff like that.
Scary.
It is scary.
I guess shifting gears a little bit, for you, when we talk to engineers or people who are coming from more technical background, usually people don't really go over new industries or pursue some of these crazy opportunities. So I'm like just wondering like what really drives you in terms of your willingness or your ability to actually do these very interesting things.
I'm a natural problem solver. So when I choose industries and whatever the next step is, I have to be really convinced and passionate about solving the problems for that particular industry. And this is the reason why I've selected some of the jobs I've had in the past, and even with my job right now at Xsolla. Like in logistics, when I was in Singapore, right, we got a chance to delve into and try and solve some of the really complex problems in logistics, like how do you solve rerouting packages when something goes wrong. Let's say for example a node goes down in Minneapolis because there's a snowstorm. Now you have to reroute thousands of packages, and they would do that manually, right? So AI would be a prime candidate to fix that particular problem, right? How nodes are connected and how best efficiently reroute this. So that's certainly interesting. And actually, before working for that company, I never thought logistics would be such an interesting domain until I got introduced to it and then started diving into it. And it's like, wow. If, for example, in our dispatch module, right, we had to solve the traveling salesman problem and even something more complex than that. Because traveling salesman essentially is just best route when you have, let's say, 5 pickup points. But what if it's a bit more complicated than that, right? And you need to actually make a couple of drops and consolidate or deconsolidate, right? What else is happening that can affect that decision? So yeah, and then I worked in travel for a while, travel industry, helping build airline booking engines for a lot of airlines globally. That was interesting. I got introduced to building e-commerce solutions, B2C, which is very different way of building applications, because when you build B2C sites like that, like e-commerce, it's no longer about just making sure that the features work. Can you support like millions of searches, right? Can you support hundreds, thousands, 10,000s of concurrent users, especially in a regulated industry that includes payment, right? When they need to pay with their credit cards, then it becomes something more complex, right? Because small mistake could mean potentially people's information being hacked and then released out there, and then airlines losing money and so forth, right? So it's been an interesting ride. And now with Xsolla, we're in the video game commerce industry, so we're building a lot of stuff that helps game publishers become more productive and commercially viable, and helping their clients, the actual gamers themselves, right, enjoy the game as much. And for me, this is very important because I'm an avid gamer myself, right? I've been playing video games before they were cool. From the family computer and Super NES days.
Wow.
I was a pretty decent Street Fighter 2 gamer. So.
And now you can win millions of dollars playing games.
Yes, right. I wish that was the case when I used to play games. And man, I would get in so much trouble from playing video games from my parents back then. But it is what it is.
Got it. And I guess as you have moved across these different opportunities and industries, do you feel like some of these learnings will carry over, or?
Yeah. Like I said, I think engineering to that extent is universal, right? So, software engineering, building the right teams, weighing and trying to figure out, where you are in the journey, how much do you value speed right now or quality, and how you weigh that. and how the strategy changes over the next couple of years as you become more mature, as an engineering organization and as a company. Because there's a big tendency sometimes to over-engineer stuff, just because, right? And some engineers can't resist that, right? I want to do it this way. I want to do it, build it right way.
Yeah.
It needs to follow the proper design, and you hear, buzzwords like microservices getting dropped all the time. And, sure, for certain scenarios, but if you're just trying to prove a POC and come out with an MVP, right? And you're not even sure whether the market is going to like this, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Right. And I guess this is where all of the advances in AI and helping build software or write code faster becomes more valuable, right? Because it's just testing an idea. Then you don't need to over engineer that until you actually know that you need it.
I see. So recently in Silicon Valley, there's this basically fad or a theme of vibe coding, right? Which is using a lot of these coding tools to generate websites or even CRM solutions or whatever application, right? Yeah. Do you think that this is something that will continue to improve because of the use case of maybe testing business propositions, or will that even take over more of the traditional engineering like workflow?
I think it's already there, right? There's a lot of people arguing whether this is going to replace software engineers or not. And honestly, right, I think it's pointless to debate that. The tool is already there. We're obviously seeing some use for it, so use it for that. I think the problem is there's a lot of, I would say maybe 70-80% of content there that's just trying to hype stuff, right? And I'd rather not participate in that. If it's useful for something, use it. If you think that it warrants some review before you actually apply some of the stuff that you're getting from AI, because you have to be more careful, right? Because the applications you're building require a bit more observability, security, performance tuning, and all of that stuff. And this is not something temporary. This is going to end up in production and it's going to support millions and millions of transactions. Then you need to be a bit more careful. So, yeah.
I guess the question is, AI is improving at such a rapid pace. So will we get to the point whereby even the basic questions of security, of observability, stability, or rigorousness of your code will get there? That's be able to be generated by AI.
I think eventually, right? But I guess the question is how soon is that going to happen, right? I'm a bit skeptical when people say like in the next 3 years, right, or next 4 years, because I'm not seeing the evidence of that yet, right? Obviously, AI is going to get better and better, right? How fast, or can they sustain this pace? I don't know. Is it going to be like 10x better in 3 years' time? We don't know, right? So I think as AI gets better, it's certainly going to start solving some of those problems that it has right now. But I think it's all about the engineers or the people in tech figuring out how to adjust and observe and learn how the technology is changing, and so we're changing with it, and not just fight it and push it away, right? Because the genie is out of the it's happening. So,
in your engineering org, do you guys use some of these Copilot?
yes,
or
yeah. So at Xsolla, we're very progressive in that sense, and we have a founder that's highly supportive of this, and we're openly asking our engineers to try out different tools like Cursor, Windsurf, and to try and figure out where we can find more productivity and faster pace, better speed, and faster way to generate test data. Is there better way of testing these modules? So we're trying to explore a lot of that stuff. So we're a bit more open, and my leadership and my boss's leadership, the CTO, is very supportive of this, and I love that about Xsolla actually. Some of it probably will not pan out, right? But I love the fact that we're willing to try, and we're willing to fund this and figure out which one will actually stick and which ones we can close.
Based on the ones that you've tried so far, have you seen tangible results on improvements in productivity and quality of code?
Yeah, like even for my own use, right? I've seen productivity gains just for my own use, and I don't code anymore, right? Like just doing research, comparing tools, comparing what's available out there. I even use it for conducting interviews and trying to drill down. Like for example, I'm interviewing for an architect role or somebody who's going to lead infrastructure or a tech lead, right? Say, he's already gone through the interview and they've covered system design, they've covered, performance and security. Maybe I want to focus on something else, right? And rather than, spend, hours and hours trying to figure out, okay, how do I want to phrase these questions and what should I look for, right? It's so much easier to just, feed them into ChatGPT and then just say, oh, okay, this makes sense, right? I'm going to ask this. And then I just say, what would be a good follow-up question for this, right? And then I can easily pick, this looks nice. So even for an executive like me, I can see the benefit of that from the way I've used it. So and I've heard from stories from my engineers where they've actually seen the benefits. Right now, for example, one of the big strategies we're doing is we're trying to figure out the testing part, right, of how this can actually help with the testing, because testing is one of those prime candidates because it's repetitive, right? We build a feature, we extend that feature, we tweak that feature, you're going to have to test that over and over again, right? Multiple times if you do releases every week or if you do releases every day, right? Every time you do a release you check in code, you need to test. So this is prime candidate. So this is an avenue we're trying to look at. I think it's one area where, a lot of software engineering teams should start looking into, right? Because it's one of those quick wins.
I see. And for you guys, your software engineering team is mostly in Malaysia, or is it also global?
No, we're all over the place. There are about 100 tech guys here in KL. We have an office in Beijing. We have engineers in Beijing, Baku, Azerbaijan, Montreal, and in the US. So we have people everywhere. So we have to deal with remote teams. And still try to build a culture and collaboration that works for a global organization like that. So that's why some of these tools are important, right? Face-to-face interaction, right, and communication is obviously very important, and we try to organize as much of that as we can, budget willing, right, as much as the budget allows. But obviously, you need to embrace the fact that we are a global organization, and we need to utilize a lot of these tools as much as we can.
How's your experience, I guess, building a global team, or at least managing people from a global team? Do you feel like certain countries produce engineers that are better in certain regards versus others?
So we try to have a strategy of we'll hire where we find the best candidates, right? Obviously, it's going to be really fantastic if we can do that in countries where we have an office, but we have engineers working remotely from other countries as well. It hasn't stopped us from pursuing these talent simply because there's only one person working in that country. So for us, I think the number one important thing is quality, right? So if we can find the right match of what we're looking for specifically, then we go for that, right? We try to organize ourselves so more people, for example, are here in KL just because we have such a nice office here and the teams are here. But yeah, Xsolla embraces it like a remote culture, and we have teams working remotely.
I'm also curious, in Silicon Valley, there's this trope of a 10x engineer. So I'm curious your opinion on maybe with AI and now more globalization where people are hiring remotely and you have access to all this talent combined with AI, combined with maybe even software that allows you to overcome language or cultural barriers. Do you feel like the incomes or salaries of engineers globally also go higher, or there'll be more of these companies that actually hire remotely because of the power of AI and globalization?
Well, it's not stopping some companies from taking that strategy right now, right? Where they're just outsourcing the talent from countries where they can find cheap resources. So I think though, with the advent of AI, engineers will have to figure out how they can provide better value, right, to the companies that they work for, and because I think what's becoming apparent, it's becoming easier and easier to do some of the basic stuff, right? So I remember a tweet from Kent Beck where I think he said when he finally tried AI, he discovered that 90% of the stuff that he knows how to do has become obsolete, but the 10% has grown value like 1,000-fold. And so I think it's going to be a lot more like this rather than saying AI is just going to replace all of the software engineers in the world.
I see.
I think, people who don't or are not willing to evolve with this change will find themselves, yes, potentially out of work and, outclassed by some of the guys who have the hard skills but can also utilize AI. I think that's very clear.
So perhaps the strategy is to find that niche that you're a world-class expert in, because that information and that knowledge will actually become more and more valuable as time goes on.
Yes, definitely, right? And software engineering is not just about writing code. It's about understanding the problems that your users have, crafting the right solution for them at that time. Because sometimes, like I said, engineers tend to over-engineer. And all of that stuff is not needed right now. They just need this, right? So build the simplest thing for what is needed, and then deploy it and let them use it and get feedback. So yeah, I think eventually people are going to realize that it's not so much about this debate about what's going to happen. Are people going to lose their jobs, or should we still push for people to go with computer science and try to be engineers, right? It's like, I don't think that will ever go away. If you are providing the right value as a software engineer because you know how to translate requirements, you know how to talk to customers, you're emphatic, right? You know how to work with people remotely, you know how to write code and test code properly, you know how to think about the edge cases when you're testing. These are some of the skills that will still be valuable in the age of AI. So you just need to evolve.
And if you're hiring right now, like, are those the skills that you look for?
Yeah, we try as much as we can, to get that right. So through the evaluation process, obviously you try to drill that down to the people who assess an interview. Sometimes we make mistakes, sure, right?
Yeah.
There are profiles where it looks good on paper. Interview, they ask the right questions, they answer the right way, and because of AI, it makes it easier to get the proper answers to some of these technical questions. But yeah, I think so far recently we've been doing a good job of sniffing that out, and trying to get more value from the new hires.
I'm curious if you were maybe thinking back to when you were like 22 or 23, or very young in your career, and you were to give yourself advice, knowing what you know now, like, what would you tell yourself?
The same advice that I tell like young guys who approach me and say, "Hey, Kiko, is computer science still a good idea?" So my advice would be optimize for learning, right, and not for money, right? Because it's very easy for the younger generation to think about, okay, this is my dream job, right? I need to work for Amazon or whatever, and I know some of these guys that actually end up working for these nice companies, and they end up doing nothing significant. Actually, they have a high-paying job, right? But the work they're doing is not interesting, and they're okay with it, right? So I think that's where dreams die, to be honest, and skills die, right? Because I think as an engineer, you need to optimize on learning, because this is the real way you can really double your value, right, and triple your value in such a short amount of time. It's not about the years of experience, right? Because someone who's been doing this, let's say, for 10 years, right? He could be doing the wrong thing for 10 years. So it doesn't mean that he's a senior guy or a mature guy. It's really about learning the proper skills and learning along the way, and picking up some of these from working with really smart people in interesting projects. So go for the projects or companies that work on interesting stuff, and where that you'll actually learn, because you're going to be working with talented people. And I've been fortunate that I've had the chance to do that.
That's amazing. I also, for you, I'm just curious, is being from the Philippines, or the fact that Southeast Asia is where you're from, did that kind of pull you back to being here, as opposed to maybe the US or Europe or some other place in the long run? Yeah,
that's always come up. Like my parents are in the US now, and my older brother is in California as well. My experience, for example, of doing some of these big projects for big companies, sometimes you think about that, right? Man, it'd be nice if I could do this in the Philippines and actually help my country. It's difficult, especially also when you hear the news from back home. There's actually a lot of potential that can happen. I think it's a matter of political will, and really just being able to support some of these stuff, because there's a lot of, number one, there's a lot of talented tech people in the Philippines.
Certainly.
And I would say there's really no shortage of funds, because a lot of people say, there's not a lot of funding. But what I've seen actually is the projects that have the biggest fundings are the government projects actually. The problem is that there's always some problems because of some corrupt practices, right? Let's say, for example, they fund something with 100 million. How much of that actually just were wasted because of that? And, I've participated in some of these where we didn't get to implement a really good idea just because we were partnered with the wrong vendor who didn't have the right relationship.
I see.
With someone in authority, and it's so sad. But it is what it is.
I guess, do you think that, when you look at Southeast Asia or even the Middle East or US, and you think about how now actually AI is an enabler, right? It's enabling progress at a more and more rapid rate. But sometimes when you think about if these structural disadvantages exist, maybe that will actually make you, just inhibit your growth, right? Do you think that in the future, then, the world looks quite different in regards to?
Yeah, I mean, tech doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It needs funding. It needs regulation, right? It needs support. It needs a community, and it needs to be viable and profitable also. So I think if like in Singapore, right? It's our neighbor, but technology there has matured a lot. Where just ordering food, right, or scheduling some cleaning for your condo is so easy, right? And it's such a big frustration. For example, when I'm back in the Philippines and I can't do that, or when I'm ordering a Grab and now I have to wait like 15-20 minutes when I'm used to 2 minutes.
Yeah, every time at least in the US, I spend a lot of time, even, at universities like Harvard with a lot of Filipino students, and I'm always blown away by the intellectual capability. And, every time I go to the Philippines, everyone speaks English so fluently. And it seems like there's definitely a lot of latent potential in the country and where the country could be. Yeah.
Yeah. And the sad part is, when these guys leave because there's no, they can't, mature in the Philippines. Right, because the opportunities are outside.
I see.
I guess maybe I'm one of that example where I'm kind of sharing my talent outside. If it'd be fantastic, right? If I could do this in Manila and be able to do some of these stuff. And I know some friends in the Philippines who are toughing it out and chose to stay. And my heart goes out to these guys. And we just need to continue building and supporting the right initiatives and electing the right people. To make sure that happens.
I think at the end of the day, when I think about technology and software, it's probably, one of these only things in the world that truly democratizes opportunity. It gives anyone the opportunity to earn money, wealth, these kind of things. So I do hope that as technology develops and accelerates more, that some of these more fundamental issues will also hopefully be resolved or just be improved or better.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful, and as an insider, I guess, in technology, I'm certainly trying to do my best to try and foster that and improve the overall picture and landscape. Because at the end of the day, you have to find that your work is actually making an impact.
Yes.
And it's not just about, okay, I did a bunch of stuff and I saved some money for some millionaire, some billionaire. Right? I mean, sure, that's good too, but also, if it helps, making life easy, better, efficient for mankind, right? A country where you're living or your home country, that's an added bonus.
Yeah, that's great. That's great perspective, because I think in the very end, that's what really matters, right?
Yeah. I agree.
Awesome. I think for the last section, what we want to do is go over some quick rapid fire questions, right?
Okay.
So feel free to answer whatever comes to your mind. The first question is, what is your favorite tech tool or app that you use right now?
I would go with the super apps, right? Like Grab, or when I was in Dubai, Kareem. Order food, get a ride, and because it just makes life so much easier. And I need to be fair. ChatGPT and all of these stuff too, because it's been really helpful.
Awesome. If you're not doing what you're doing now, what do you think you'd be spending your time on?
Okay, this is good. This is good. Maybe can be maybe a surprise. I would say um, musician.
Wow.
Yes. I still play guitar, and I used to play guitar for a rock band.
You have that look still, you know.
Yeah, I guess so. And yeah, I think I'm a frustrated professional or amateur guitar player because I was never able to turn pro, right? But that's something that I think I would have really liked. I still play. I'm an okay guitar player, but yeah, I would say a musician.
Have you played with some of these music generating AI tools that they can make songs, or you can add different tracks? And
I've worked with a couple of people who have, and my mind has been blown every time.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, just the amount of creativity that gets generated from doing some stuff on your keyboard, and just it's mind blowing because it's very tough to do that back in the day when I was learning guitar. Just learning, to play actually. Now it's so much easier, right? You have YouTube and you have all of these tools that teach you, and yeah, it's fantastic. We live in very interesting days.
yeah, for sure. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Never let anyone prevent you from being the best version of yourself. Because sometimes you're put in a situation, you're working with a team, team's not so good, someone's got an attitude, not ideal situation, not ideal environment, and people use that as an excuse. Just do your best, man. Just do your best. I think eventually, if you do, people will see the effort, and whether you get 100% or 90% or 50%, people will see.
And last question is, what are you the most grateful for in life?
Wi-Fi. No, so I think because I've had the chance to work with really talented people, that to me has been awesome, and I've built a lot of really good lifelong friendships along the way. So not just ex-colleagues, these are some of the guys that I call my friends, and of course my family. I don't know how they've put up with me with the long hours and all of the traveling, moving around, Manila, Dubai, Singapore, Dubai, now KL. It's been a wild ride, and really happy that they've stuck with me, and that I'm still going and enjoying life.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, Kiko, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the wide-ranging conversation, everything from some pretty crazy career experiences to the future of AI and all of this other things. But I guess before we wrap up, where can people find you or learn more about Xsolla if they're interested in connecting?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Kiko Basilio, and I'm here in KL. So if you're in KL, feel free to drop by. We're at Bangsar South, and happy to meet you guys, have coffee, and have a quick chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kiko. I love the conversation, and stay tuned for the next episode.
All right. Thank you, guys.